Hello guys, Shadow Sabat here, and today I'm doing another episode review on Amphibia. So this week we have Mr.X and Sprig birthday, both of which are very interesting episodes respectively. I found Mr.X actually a little underwhelming, while also pretty good. I thought it was pretty good, but some aspects I didn't really love. And I found Sprig birthday, they really tried to set it up, because it felt like a season 1 episode, but on Earth, which I find is amazingly done. Let's get into it. So, we start off with Mr. X. And this episode is, I find it almost like a Frobo episode. I think that's why I didn't like it. As good as it is, I feel like too much of it is chase sequence, and I don't like that. Near the end it got really good and pretty funny, but a lot of it was just chase sequence, and I'm not a big fan of just chase sequence, especially when they're not as excited as before. And I think you guys will see what I'm talking about. So we start off with Mr. X and his partner in a lab researching what they've seen about Anne and the Planter and hoping they found aliens. Because apparently his name's Mr. X because he studies extraterrestrials. Shouldn't your name be Mr. E then? Haha! Spelling. So, after using a high-tech computer, they turned this image, found their location, and determined or that spindly, the slim creature they see, who's a human, is the one they have to look for because she is probably housing the quote-unquote aliens. And this is actually what I mean about why I don't really love the episode. Afterwards, the Planters and the Boonshore family are basically talking about how, they're so happy. They have post-battle euphoria, where they're just so hyped and so happy after they just won the battle. And what's set up from early on is Anne really doesn't want them to get hurt. So she's basically like, yeah, they want to know what the next adventure is, and they just want her parents to calm down and not get hurt. So then Anne and the Planters go to the movie. When hungry, Mr. X and his partner go to Go, and when they order something, they show them the picture and ask Anne's mom if she has seen these creatures who are being housed. Anne's mom, of course, nervous now, tries to warn Anne but can't because she's at the movies, and calls Anne's father, and they both go after, because after Mr. X locates them, he goes off because he's looking for Anne and the Planters. He locates them on the highway, and Anne's mom and Anne's dad get in the car after them. So everyone talks about how they feel about the movie. And Sprig is especially interesting because he says it's basically super loud, assaulting his senses. And I'm not surprised because he's always been like a bit like really into senses and stuff. And he's always been into touching and feeling stuff. A whole episode was partly about him trying to go to someone without touching anything. So I think that makes sense, and I find that interesting. I wonder if that will ever come back later, like a loud sound causing Sprig to not be able to do anything. And after this, I almost feel like it's the worst episode I've reviewed yet. It's not bad. It's just that I feel like this episode takes too long. They have another chase scene. It's Mr. X chasing the planter and around, but it's just so uneventful. As a human villain, I just don't find him that threatening. He's threatening, but still, he just seems like, without maybe a stun gun, he's so, simple. Say the FBI were all throughout the building chasing them guys. That would be an intense scene. I'd be like, what's gonna happen? But in this, it's just a single guy chasing, and then he calls for backup. And the guy at the door checking everybody. Seriously, guys. Since when can people just go to the door and tell you, get scanned here? Seriously, he wasn't there when you came in. You can't just scan me. I don't know what that is. But apparently he can. I just don't like the chasing guys, honestly. Them just running from Mr. X. And you remember in the store with the robot guys when they were running around and fighting him when no one was looking? I feel like that's something that would have made more sense instead of a long, drawn-out chase scene for 3 minutes. The interesting part is Anne's mom and dad both have a plan to get them out of there, but Anne doesn't want to listen, tells them to stay out of it. So I guess it's something out of the scene, a bit of character development near the end. So they hide in the closet, and Mr. X catches Hot Pop shortly. And when his glasses fall off, he's like, "Why are you so slimy? Oh, you're a frog monster." And then Mr. X calls in the FBI, who all come in. So then it's really interesting. It's a bit of a quick wrap up. It's not my favorite, but I don't mind it that much. So, and mom and dad come and do a bait and switch, bring them out of the bathroom, put these frogs in place to make it look like Mr. X was chasing nothing but three normal frogs, not frog monsters, and that's pretty much it. And the explanation for how they knew what bathroom they were in, that they stuck a giant tracker on Hot Pop. I mean, I know cartoons aren't supposed to be used for lore mostly, but come on, really. Really, and no one saw this. I I feel like it's possible. It's just not something I'd usually see out of Amphibia. I mean, I would much rather expect like them all running through. Like, remember the museum? Stuff like that. It worked because of the robot being threatening, and this just doesn't work in my opinion. But remember, guys, when I say worst episode I've reviewed, it's not that it's bad. It's just I don't like it as much as the others. So if the others were 4 and 5 out of 5, I'd give this episode 3 out of 5, or like a 6 or 7 out of 10. Well, the rest would be all 8 to 10 out of 10. But then let's go on to Sprig birthday. Interesting thing is I have very few things to say about this episode. Besides, it's just a season 1 episode on Earth. I mean, they do it in a way, and they added a hint near the end that makes it very obvious what they were going for, and I appreciate that. So they find out it's Sprig's birthday, and does. So it's apparently tradition in Amphibia that you get a mud crown, stand to a window and think about your life. I have to say, Sprig without the hat it's a very interesting scene. I like it. It looks really, really nice. So Sprig's just like, "Oh, I'm done. I guess my birthday's done. Let's go watch streaming services." And wants to give him a much better birthday, an Earth birthday. Which feels like something she'd do in season 1. And the thing is, how she does it makes it even more season 1. And it's like retro, and she says she's basically going to get him the best birthday ever no matter what. And not even if he wants to do it, just come on, let's go. And of course, they have to bash on Mr. Winjoy. Like, they do it twice this episode. Please, just stop. Leave him alone. The mud crown falls on his head. Just please stop. Poor Mr. Winjoy. Anna and Sprig ride around and do a bunch of different stuff in the montage. You guys should go watch for yourself. Not really anything specifically interesting. Sprig getting cake. Sprig going walking around. It's just, just them hanging out for a nice birthday experience. So after they're all done, Sprig's super happy and thinks his birthday's great. And Anne says, so she basically gave him the best birthday ever. And she's like, "This isn't my favorite birthday. It's definitely top 3. And she's annoyed because she wants to get 3rd. And that's why I say it really feels like a season 1 episode. I mean, like when Anne was trying to be his best friend and said best friend. I'll never forget when she said, like, best friends always do stuff with each other, or else they may not want to be a friend anymore. These comments like that, it feels like this episode where she's like, "I did all this work to be a top 3 birthday." It feels like Anne's a bit stubborn, like a lot like the original Anne, which is interesting because her personality's still there. Also, warning, guys, for the rest of this episode, I'm going to be comparing it to season 1. After they get a balloon, even though they're not supposed to, because it's high wind and stuff could go wrong, and lies, season 1, about just going to sit in there and imagine she's moving. She then actually goes up in the air, and the strong winds blow her off I forgot what that thing's called, that sticks into the ground that stops them from moving. I'm just going to call it mini anchor. The mini anchor gets pulled out of the ground and they go flying. A bunch of side jokes occur. Like 2 minutes of side jokes, just a bunch of random characters around the city. And they fall into a dumpster while Anna said that she didn't do the best birthday. That she ruined it. And Sprig basically says, it wasn't that great a birthday because of all the stuff they did because he was with his best friend Anne. And then we learned that his favorite birthday is the one he was actually born, and his second favorite is the one where his parents gave him that hat. So, it's understandable. And he's right. That is very iconic. Also, if you think at all this isn't a reference to season 1, Anne gets a friend punch with Sprig's tongue. And she even remarks she hasn't gotten that in a while. Okay, that's enough. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I partly enjoyed it. I thought they were decent. Not the best Amphibia has to offer, though. But I think next week was Marcy. That may be some of the most exciting things ever. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed, and have a nice day.